emula tithanso kupinda mkono wathu ndi kukhosomolera kapena kuyetsemulira pomwe tapinda mkono wathupo. Tisambe m'manja ndi sopo ndi kutikita kwa masekanzi 17 tikatha kukhosomola kapena kuyetsemula. Titsuke komanso kuthira mankhwala ophati zilombo toyambitsa matenda malo onse amene odwala anagwiritsa ntchito kuphatikizapo ziwiya zonse. Tipewe kukhudzana ndi anthu ena. Tipewe kupereka kapena kulandira moni wapadzanja. Kumbukirani kuti kupewa kumaposa kuchiza.
Uthengawo akupatsirani ndi Zodiak Broadcasting Station ZBS.
This is Sibongile Ziambo with the news on Zodiac. The headlines. UNP sworn in. African leaders do end terrorism and civil war by 2063. Msundwa women to be compensated. Musician George Mkandawide remembered. And finally in sports news, Big Nyasa Bullets registered its first win in the TNM 2020-2021 Super League. Thank you for joining me. Now the news in detail. Chief Justice Andu Nyirenda has challenged newly sworn-in members of parliament to promote the interests of their constituents, saying they are called to save the citizenry. The swearing-in ceremony of the two members of parliament who triumphed in the November 10 by-elections in Lilongwe Northwest and Karonga Central constituencies was held today in Lilongwe. At Parliament, the two Lilongwe Northwest, Dr. Mpatso Boti, and Karonga Central, Leonard Mwarwanda, have made a commitment to satisfy the needs of their constituents and constitution with an allegiance to observe and protect the law, as well as doing right and justice to the people of Omanans. African leaders have resolved to end all sorts of terrorism and civil war by 2063 after the continent failed to achieve the same goal by 2020. This has come on Sunday at the end of the second day, 14th extraordinary session of the African Union virtual meeting. President Lazarus Chakwera told journalists at the end of the meeting that every country should play a part to ensure the goal is reached. The leaders also agreed to establish a continental free trade area beginning 1 January 2021, where African countries will be conducting trade with each other without barriers. Details in this report.
Addressing journalists at the end of the virtual 14th session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government on silencing guns, President Lazarus Chakwera says peace, safety and security are a prerequisite for the attainment of socio-economic development. He noted that pockets of violence and armed conflict that persist in some parts of the African continent are a threat to collective prosperity. President Chakwera therefore called upon African Union member states to work together to heal the continent and prevent new ones from breaking out in places where there are clear signs of resentment, discontentment and radicalization. He said Malawi's experience historical and recently was that collaborative ways of settling disputes are more productive than combative one. Chakwera added that Malawi champions values that are contact and dialogue in Peace and Security Council of the AU. As such, the Malawi leader challenged member states to take up the responsibility in the implementation of economic development plans by uplifting the living standards of their citizens to reduce chances of them taking up arms. Chairperson for African Union, President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, said African Union member states should strive to resolve conflicts within themselves by engaging each other peacefully. He said the conflicts that have happened have had negative impacts for the economic growth of the continent.
The Malawi Electoral Commission makes says involvement of professionals from various sectors of the society could help in enhancing electoral process in the country. MEC Chairperson Justice Dr. Chifundo Kachali says this is a lesson he learned in the just-ended elections in the United States of America. He said this in Blantyre after opening a training of trainers in readiness for the forthcoming by-elections in Mangochi and Palombi districts. Happy Njeramano has filed this report.
Malawi Electoral Commission MEC is training trainers of trainers as part of preparations for the December 15, 2020 by-elections, which the Commission says are progressing well. MEC Chairperson Justice Dr. Chifundo Kachali says, for example, they have already started printing ballots, have vetted ballot templates and that civic and voter education is underway. Looking forward, Dr. Kachale, however, says he has learned things in the just-ended American elections which he says, if adopted in Malawi, can help to enhance the electoral process. He says, for example, involving professionals from various fields in electoral process as volunteers can enhance the country's democracy.
Due to lack of adequate information and due to high levels of suspicion, it can undermine the credibility with which the stakeholders and citizens receive electoral outcomes. So if you can get more people involved in the electoral activities, it can actually enhance their level of awareness of the intricacies involved in running elections, and they could be able maybe to try and allay some of the fears and misunderstandings that may arise, which may undermine the credibility of your processes.
One of the training participants, Alfred Chikalipo, says every training comes with new things crucial for the electoral process.
We have done these trainings before so many times, but then things change as we go along. So we are still learning new things. So there will be uniformity so that we train people well out there with regard to what is currently on the ground.
People will vote for their members of parliament after court nullified the 2019 elections in Mangochi West, North East and Palombe North constituencies.
The judiciary says it will in few days' time determine on the assessment of compensation for 17 women and girls who were raped and sexually harassed by police officers in October last year at Msundwe in Lilongwe. In an interview with Zodiak, Registrar of the Malawi Judiciary Gladys Gondwe said a gender expert who was engaged to help in the assessment of the compensations has submitted recommendations on the matter. Women Lawyers Association President Immaculate Maluza, whose organization is representing Msundwe women and girls, says they are happy that the matter will be concluded to the advantage of the victimized women and girls. Chris Kombe with more.
On August 13th this year, Women Lawyers Association won a case involving Msundwe women and girls who were raped and sexually harassed by some police officers who were sent to quell the situation at Msundwe in October last year. The High Court in Lilongwe then ordered that the women and girls be compensated. Judge Kinyanda Nyirenda said the assessment for the compensation should be done within 21 days. 3 months after the ruling, the judiciary says will in a few days' time determine when to deliver its ruling on the compensation. Registrar of the Malawi Judiciary, Gladys Gondwe, has told us they engaged a gender expert to help in the assessment of the compensation.
I checked with the concerned court and I am informed that it was awaiting a report from a gender expert, and the same was filed about a week ago, and in due course the court will be setting the matter down for delivery of ruling. Women Lawyers Association, an organization representing the Msundwe women and girls in the matter, says they have been waiting for such a moment. The association's president, Immaculate Maluza, says they are happy that the victimized women and girls will be compensated.
On our side as Women Lawyers Association, and it's good news on the assessment of damages, will be out shortly. We look forward to hearing what the court has to say. The women have suffered for a long time now. So even on their part, I think we as women lawyers are excited that the case is coming to a close and they can move on with their lives and have a semblance of normalcy. 18
women and girls in Msundwe were harassed by police officers in an apparent revenge on the death of their fellow police officer who was killed by an angry mob there. This is Grace Kombe for Zodiac.
Meanwhile, the judiciary says instituting a standalone court to look into gender-based violence issues will not help fast-track hearing of such cases, but further slow down the efforts to board off gender-based violence cases in the country. Its registrar, Gladys Gondwe, told us yesterday that much as the idea is good, its implementation is not viable, as it will mean only selected few courts will be responsible for the cases nationwide, hence piling pressure on them. The NGO Gender Coordination Network called for the introduction of a special court to try gender-based violence cases in an effort to expedite justice delivery in the country. John Bokayuni reports.
In an effort to fast-track justice delivery on rape and defilement cases in the country, the NGO Gender Coordination Network called for the establishment of a standalone court to specifically look into such cases. NGO GCN chairperson Barbara Banda observed that the cases were not being given enough attention.
We can see that the cases of GBV and rape have really increased, and that the responses are not enough with the system that we have at the moment. So having a specific court means that we want to see that this justice is delivered on time.
but the judiciary says the idea is not viable. Judiciary Registrar Gladys Kondwe told Zodiak in an interview that having a standalone court on the issues at the moment will do the opposite of what the advocates are picturing.
This would negatively affect access to justice for the people out there, because then we would be limiting the courts that would handle these matters. So instead of us achieving speedy disposal of the matters, we would actually work in the opposite direction. So we think it's not the best that we can do, but rather for us, I think the best is to increase the numbers of the magistrates that can handle these matters at this moment.
Malawi has seen a sharp increase in rape and defilement cases recently. Various stakeholders have called for stiffer punishments for perpetrators. For Zodiak in Lilongwe, this is John Paul Kayuni.
A global organization called Days for Girls has implored on government to start distributing free sanitary pads to girls as one way of motivating them to go to school, especially during their menstruation. The organization's global director, Melan Wilson, made the call Saturday in Data when our organization was distributing sanitary pads to 1,700 girls in the area of Senior Chief Kashindamoto. Wilson explains.
Done a very small distribution back in 2018, and Chief Kashindamoto said that it made such a big impact on the girls. She reached out to us and asked us, please, can we come back so that we can help her to help her girls stay in school. And that brought us to seek funding for this amazing experience to be able to reach more girls. We are reaching 1,700 girls in this campaign, and it's very exciting to be here for that. Girls is an international organization. We provide menstrual health education and solutions to girls. We believe that girls should have choices, and one of the choices should be a washable, reusable pad that they can have for 3 to 5 years, which they can keep using without any further expense. And so it's a very hygienic, hypoallergenic system, and we love to give the girls the very best that they can. We are in 144 countries at the moment, and working in many communities all over the world.
You're watching news on Zodiac. We'll be right back shortly. Stand by. Welcome back. Let's take a look at the headlines. New MPs sworn in, and African leaders to end terrorism and civil war by 2063. Nsundwe women to be compensated. And musician George Mkandawire remembered. In sports news, Big Nyasa Bullets registers its first win in the TNM 2020-2021 Super League. The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 says is evaluating prospects of introducing COVID-19 vaccine in the country as the World Health Organization is yet to make final approval towards the end of this year. However, co-chairperson of the task force, Dr. John Puka, has indicated mobilization of financial resources is one crucial area that is being considered for the immunization exercise. He was speaking in Doha during a COVID-19 media interface. Anyango Nkoma reports.
Chairperson of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, Dr. John Puka, observed that people are already ignoring set COVID-19 preventive measures, such as wearing of face masks and frequent hand washing, adding that materials that were placed in marketplaces or shops have been removed. He has since called on members of the public to continue adhering to set preventive measures, observing a rise in cases of the pandemic in Zambia, Uganda, South Africa and Kenya. Dr. Puka says the trend in the region poses a threat of a second wave of the pandemic in Malawi, primarily due to onset of rains and non-compliance to set preventive measures. The Presidential Task Force chairperson has since challenged the media to scale up dissemination of COVID-19 preventive measures. Meanwhile, Dr. Puga says they are still analyzing various aspects such as resources and groups of people before introducing COVID-19 vaccine in the country. He said this on Saturday in Doha during a COVID-19 media interface. Nyasa Times journalist Alfred Chakwera says he will now be writing more stories on COVID-19, sensitizing people on the importance of following such preventive measures ahead of second wave of the pandemic. Journalists play a vital role in reporting on public health globally. For Zodiak in Doha, this is Aunyango Nkoma reporting.
The funeral ceremony for celebrated gospel artist George Mkandawire is underway at Robbie's Park in Blantyre. Mkandawire died in Zambia on December 2 at the age of 46. Performances by musicians at the ceremony will lead to his burial later this afternoon at HHI Cemetery. Happy Njaramano is there.
Politicians are here and musicians are also here, and various artists across the country are also here to pay their last tribute to a fallen artist, George Mkandawire, who passed on last week on Wednesday. And just to mention that in the morning there were performances by some artists, just also to pay their last tribute to the fallen hero, just to pay their last tribute to the fallen artist. As I'm not speaking now, I can also see Lucius Banda, who is also here. As we know him, is the greatest artist in the country. He's just arriving here also to pay his last respect to George Mkandawire. Minister for Arts, Dr. Michael also spoke to the people who are here, and central to his message, it's about love. He called upon the musicians in the country to love one another, saying that it seems that there is no love in this fraternity. So he stressed that love is central to each and everything. Among other people who are here, Gloria Malonga, who is the president of the Musicians Association of Malawi. Another artist also performed in the morning. Other people like James Wari were also here. So this is what has transpired at the funeral ceremony for George Mkandawire. And this afternoon, Bali will be happening at the HHI Cemetery here in Blantyre.
And in sports news, Nyasa Big Bullets has registered its first win in the 2020-2021 TNM Super League season after recording a 2-0 over Chitipa United at Karunga Stadium. Hassan Kachoke and Mike Mkwate scored the goals. Bullets coach Kalisto Pasua said his charges responded well from their defeat on Saturday to Karunga United and deserved the win, whereas his opponent number Alex Ngwira contributed the defeat to loss of concentration. And that's how we conclude this edition of news. And before we go, the headlines. New MP sworn in. African leaders to end terrorism and civil war by 2063. Msunde women to be compensated. And musician George Mkandawire remembered. In sports, Big Nyasa Bullets registers its first win in the TNM 2020-2021 Super League. Log on to our website, zodiacmalawi.com, for more on these and other stories. Remember to mask up always when you are in crowded places to help contain the spreading of COVID-19. My name is Sibongile Ziambo. Bye for now.
Wow! Do you know why I'm so happy? Just one load